Hello and welcome to another Thursday interview with me, Anne Diamond, here on Viking.TV. As you undoubtedly know by now, this week we're celebrating the amazing atmosphere going on throughout Britain, in London, probably throughout the world as well, in some places anyway, as we head towards the King's coronation at the weekend. But today I thought you might like to meet a man who was the last artist in residence for the late Queen Elizabeth II. And he had the terrific job of attending some of the most prestigious and spectacular events for the Queen's Platinum Jubilee. That's the one, of course, that marked her unprecedented 70th year on the throne. And he rather poignantly also, of course, was then there to officially paint her lying in state following her death on September the 8th last year. I remember that date so well because it was my birthday. It was a really sad day. His amazing period as artist in residence took him from the splendour of the joyful pomp and ceremony of one to, well, the sadness and solemnitude of the other. So please welcome former royal artist in residence, Freddy Paske, who joins us now from his studio, I think in Oxfordshire, and it's your home as well, isn't it, Freddie? Hi, welcome.
That's right, and I've got a kind of the perfect scenario of having my studio attached to home, so the commute's about 30 seconds in the morning, which is rather nice.
Oh, it looks great. I'm so glad to join you in your studio because we can see all your artistic mess around. And a few genius paintings in the background we'll talk a bit more about later. Do you know, I didn't even know there was such a thing as an artist in residence. Did you?
Yes, it's been something that's happened throughout the ages, I guess. Certainly in kind of the modern realms. It's interesting. The official artist in residence is something I guess created with the royal household last year. And it's a bit of a long story, and I'll wait for you to tell me to go on with it. But
well, do tell us all about it, because it started mostly because you already had contacts within the household cavalry.
Exactly right. So in 2021, the household cavalry got in touch with me, and they've always been close friends of mine. Having been in the army in my previous career, I worked with them quite a lot. And then when I left the army to become a professional artist in 2016 actually, I approached them and asked to be their artist in residence for the year. They very kindly said yes, and it was a rave success. And so in 2021, they approached me again and said, would I like to be their artist in residence for the Jubilee year, which was an incredible privilege. And so I readily accepted. I don't think any artist in residence has been asked back again to the household cavalry, so it's quite a privilege to fill those booths. But when I was planning the year with the household cavalry and looking at the parades and what's going on, I realized there were a lot more horses on parade. And I thought it'd be silly not to capture them. So off I went to the first institution, which was the Royal Mews. And they have the fabulous Windsor Greys, which pull the Queen's carriage, and you will see them on almost every parade. And I was speaking to the Crown Equerry, who's a lovely man, who's the operational head. And he said, Freddie, I love the idea. I'd love you to be our artist in residence, but it's not my decision to make. It's the Queen's. So I'll need to ask her. Anyway, a very frantic 48 hours proceeded where, or kind of resulted. And I put a very rushed collection together of works and sent it off to the palace. And I heard back a week later that the Queen had approved the role, which was amazing.
Wow.
Yeah. And so the final horses on parade to capture were the King's Troop Royal Horse Artillery. And so I approached them saying, I've got everyone else. Would you mind if I can be your artist in residence? And they said yes. And so I worked with the royal household to come up with an all-encompassing title, I guess, for the role. And we settled on the artist in residence during the Queen's Platinum Jubilee. And there you are.
That's brilliant. I mean, it's a good job you're good at horses as well, isn't it? You've really loved horses from must have been the very beginning of your whole career.
Yes, I've been unbelievably lucky, and they've been an important part of my life growing up. My mother was a fantastic equine lady, and she had this philosophy, which is you'll ride before you can walk. So we were shoved on naughty little Shetlands and ponies from a very early age, which was a kind of dreamy, idyllic childhood. And they've been part of my life ever since. I joined the army, and in the army I rode a lot, and kind of had the opportunity to ride lots. And then equally at home, my sister rode for Team GB as a junior rider, and she evented. And so she's been important. Dad was household cavalry, so he rided throughout his time in the military. My stepmother is a fantastic equine lady. So it's
very, very good breeding there, haven't you?
Yeah, they've always been there, whether I like it or not.
I can see why the Queen wanted for you to do that. I mean, it's such a special year as well. We didn't know she was going to die when she did, but we knew that the Platinum Jubilee was so amazingly special because 70 years on the throne, and the whole country throughout the world, there was such a tremendous tide of emotion. What a responsibility for you to capture that. And yet you did.
It was something that really hit me when we were planning the year with the royal household. I was looking at the things I was going to capture, and I think ultimately the Queen, quite rightly so, is quite has quite a discerning eye with regards to her artwork and her horses, because has incredible experience. She's seen the most amount of parades I think a monarch has ever seen. She loves her horses. She knows everything about them. So that was weighing heavy on my shoulders throughout the whole year, actually. Plus going out to Oman to see the Royal Cavalry of Oman, and Paris to see the Garde Républicaine. I was a bit of an unofficial ambassador for, I guess, equine art in the UK. So it was, there's a lot resting on it, but also quite enjoyable. I like a bit of pressure to help me along.
And you were building up, I suppose, throughout that Platinum Jubilee, you were building up to what was going to be an exhibition in something like November last year. Let's have a look at some of the paintings that you actually did do during the Jubilee time. It must have been very special to have been part of those ceremonials. You must have gone to a heck of a lot of processions and rehearsals and things like that. Yes,
certainly. I think the rehearsals were very helpful because it allowed us to plan where we would go. My artwork is heavily reliant on light being in the right place and making sure that we capture everything at the right time. So I actually worked with a photographer called Adam Blackmore-Heel, and I would point him in the right direction, and we would capture everything that we had planned weeks before during the rehearsals, etc. But there were surreal moments. I mean, Anne, I was this random guy wandering around in a bowler hat and medals in front of the barriers. I mean, I think I had the best seats in the house throughout the whole thing.
I mean, I've been to many of those occasions, and I mean, when you're in press, with the press, you're sort of behind railings and there are photographers with enormously long lenses. But if you're the artist in residence, are you there behind those barriers with a little easel or a sketch pad?
No, we were literally walking amongst the parade with Adam, my photographer. And so I'd direct him about. I'm useless at photography. I'm a painter. So I employed his services. And I would say, right, Adam, I want to capture this scene from a low angle. Off we go. And it's funny, photographers will know about this, but we had huge discussions on what lenses to take throughout the days. And because we were so close, we actually did the opposite of taking those long lenses, and we had very small lenses which could capture the whole scene within the frame. So I guess it's the opposite of the press pens, where you're there and you've got your long lens to try and capture everything else. We were kind of very mobile and just incredibly lucky to just wander around and snap away.
Well, gladly, we can see some of that video, and it just shows how you are stuck right in the middle of it, and seeing some amazing, I mean, behind the scenes sorts of shots as well, and rehearsal shots. There you are in the Royal Mews. Now, there you are watching, who are you watching there?
So that's a King Street Royal Horse artillery even, practicing or rehearsing in Woolwich. And then this is me measuring up for a sculpture, trooper in the Household Cavalry, and then back to Woolwich again. So yeah.
I love the fact that you dress for the part.
Yeah.
I mean, you see you at some point in the Mall, or in Whitehall, I think, watching a Household Cavalryman, and you're in a bowler hat. There you were with the Queen's Royal Horse Artillery. There, you're looking very country. You sort of dress for the part as well, don't you?
I'm afraid that's a hangover from the army, where as an army officer, you're always told or taught to
There you are. You see, you've got a hat on there.
You're taught to be the smartest on parade. So I try to be as smart as possible in respect for the people I'm capturing. So I'm never as smart as them, but I aspire to be.
Yeah, you really threw yourself in amongst it, and again, it's interesting there that what you're capturing there is the bridle, all of the bits to get everything right. Even though your paintings may not show everything in utter detail, the suggestion of detail is there. Is that
exactly
right?
You're right. You've hit the nail on the head there, and it's a huge part of my style is the suggestion of detail. I love the interaction, the play of the viewer looking at a painting and kind of trying to almost working out what's there and what's not. But it's interesting, despite the lack of detail, the research and the placement of brushes to suggest that detail is actually quite technical. So I did go into quite a fine, granular amount of research with regards to tack, bits, medals, and everything like that.
You've almost got to hear them tinkling and clinking.
Yeah, exactly. And especially because all these fantastic equine institutions, if it's not there, it's the first thing they notice and it's the first thing they comment on. Yeah, they're a bit of a stickler for detail.
Yeah, well, as are you. You say that's a military training, I suppose. All of these, how many paintings did you do during the Jubilee?
I think we had about 30 paintings and we had 30 paintings and 3 sculptures. The collection grew a bit because it mainly sold out before the exhibition started. So I had to create some more paintings to exhibit that were for sale. So we were in quite a fortunate position. And so I think all in all, it was about 30 paintings and 3 sculptures. Well,
we've got to look at some of them here in what you call your reflections series. And many of these would have been seen by the Queen had she lived, and sadly she didn't get to see them.
No, very sadly. I feel, it's the one thing that is actually missing from the whole collection is the fact that it never had her eye cast upon it. A small bit of respite is that her grandson now owns one of the paintings, which is lovely, and so that's part of their collection and will be forevermore. So I hope it brings back fantastic memories and memories of her as a fantastic equine lady.
Oh gosh, she knew her stuff, and she would have loved your paintings. You call this your reflection series, and you do love the idea of reflections. It's like making a painting twice as difficult. I mean, you don't only have to get the image right, but you have to get the reflection looking right too. How many hours does it take to complete a painting like that?
The actual painting is quick.
Wow.
Yeah. It's the painting process of the final canvas is relatively speedy. It's typically a week or something like that because of the planning, which is so lengthy behind in the first place. So for the big canvases, the big final canvases, it would take months of little sketches, finding out the colours, playing around with ideas, and I'd have the plan all there, essentially a little instruction booklet, which I could use to paint the final piece. So the painting's very quick. It's the planning beforehand which takes so long.
Oh, you say that, I can't. I mean, do you do a horse at a time? That's you've got some very different ones. You do these very wide ones with lots of horses, lots of guardsmen, and then you obviously decide there's one actually more reflective painting just on one person.
I think
even that one of the carriage just going away from us.
Yeah. That was the first one I did actually for the collection, and it was a winter scene. So the driver is in her winter overcoat, these fantastic red overcoats, and yeah, it was great. It set the conditions for the whole collection actually with the reflection, and I just thought it was so elegant. You add a reflection to horses and carriages and everything like that, and it suddenly gives them the gravitas and the elegance that shows them off to their finest.
Oh, yes.
And hence it became, reflections became a key theme throughout the exhibition.
In fact, yes, I mean, the exhibition did take place. Sadly, the Queen wasn't there. And you called it?
Lasting Reflections.
Lasting Reflections.
Yeah. It's a bit of play on words there.
Yeah.
I had some help from my from some friends.
I think a lot of people watching might think, if you're artist in residence for the Queen, you would expect you to have painted her, but you didn't, did you?
No, the brief was always, there are some fantastic portrait artists who capture her, and there have been in the past, and that's a very well trodden path. But my speciality is very much wildlife and horses, and the Queen selected me for my horses, not of her, or for my people. So I was very keen to focus on that, and I didn't want to try and attempt a portrait. I'm useless at portraiture, and there's a reason I'm an equine artist and a wildlife artist. That's where my strengths lie, and so I thought it was just important to focus on the parades and focus on what she loved so much.
Yeah, except that you do it occasionally, because I mean, if you look at there's a lovely carriage photograph of Kate and Camilla, I think at one of the troopings of the colour, right? Yes. Very recognisable ladies there, aren't they? Yeah. And you did do a painting where I think Kate is absolutely recognisable. Couldn't be anyone else. And you also do William, don't you, on horseback?
I do, yeah.
Despite all of the paraphernalia, that sort of is William, isn't it?
Well, you're very kind. It's my style, I think, is very suited to doing these kind of long distance portraits where you just focus on key features. And it's amazing. It almost sums up what a lot of my work is about. If you can capture through a few kind of deft key brushstrokes, the eye will automatically recognize what it's seeing, and it will make that, it will click straight away. And throughout all my works, that's what I try to do. I want someone to get an impression of the scene without getting bogged down in detail and trying to, I always say it's like, I'd rather people have a two-way conversation with the art piece rather than being told what to see. Yeah. Typically what a photograph does. Yes,
almost see an invitation to see what you want to see in it. But exactly. No, you could have done some lovely ones of the Queen. I'll bet there are some. I'll bet you've tried them out somewhere. Somewhere in those cupboards behind you, there's a couple of the Queen.
Maybe.
Interesting. You were telling us how you got into the whole thing of being artist in residence through your links with the Household Cavalry, and your dad was with the Household Cavalry. And when you went into the army, how old were you? He was very disappointed you didn't want to go into the Household Cavalry.
Yeah, I mean, now I'm a father, I see where he's coming from. And a lot of these regiments have long family traditions. Yeah. And I always was brought up as, Freddie, one day you'll be in the regiment and you'll be, doing what I did. And these fantastic stories of Dad's time in the army. But it's funny how life pans out, and I took a different path actually. Same role. The Light Dragoons do a very similar role to the Household Cavalry. They just don't do as much ceremonial stuff. And it turned out that the Light Dragoons were going to Afghanistan sooner than the Household Cavalry, and I was very keen to go on tour. So it kind of just happened that way, and I think ultimately it was the right choice because I kind of cut my own path. Yeah. But now I've got a little daughter who may or may not join the army at some point, and that regimental bond is so strong. You want your offspring to kind of follow in your footsteps. So I can see where Dad's coming from.
How old is she?
She's 5 months.
Oh, right, and you're already mapping her out a career.
There you are. You can see where my father gets it from.
You went to Sandhurst, which is Britain's huge military academy, very, very famous military academy. What did they think of taking in a cadet who had an art degree?
Yeah, it's a funny old thing. I actually, the army gave me a scholarship to go to university to study art history. And the scholarship was given before I chose my degree of choice. So I'm not sure they were prepared for an art history degree. But I think it actually, the British Army is renowned for having a good smorgasbord and colourful range of people involved in it, and I think that's what makes it such an effective military, because we're not all the same, we're all very different. And it was really warmly regarded, actually. I kind of, throughout my whole military career, there's always been a huge interest in my artwork, whether it's designing invitations for parties or repainting things here and there. It was always, all right, Freddie can do that, he's an artist.
I think one of your military your beautiful Jubilee paintings should be hanging in the college in Sandhurst. That would be cool.
Yes.
But when you were in Afghanistan, for instance, did you ever, in your off time, have time for sketching or painting? Did you do any paintings from that period?
I did. It was, everyone had their kind of things that they did in their downtime just to switch off. It's such a hectic environment, and it's you're very focused much of the time on the missions. So it was really nice, and artwork and painting was my escape. So the few times I did have downtime, I would paint various scenes that I've witnessed, and I kept a sketchbook, and it was great. I kind of kept the sketchbook throughout the tour.
So at the end of your army career, did you finish in Afghanistan and then come back and decide that was enough in the army? Is that how it happened? Because it must have been a very difficult decision for you to go back into civilian life and then try and make it as an artist.
Yeah, it was. And actually, it was due to my tour in Afghanistan that I became a professional artist. We had a lovely lady called Lynn Moore, who's a war artist, and she came and embedded with my troupe out in Afghanistan in Helmand province. And sure enough, we got chatting. I mean, that's a classic example. Freddie paints, he can look after Lynn while we're on tour. So we established a bit of a bond, and she very kindly, when we got back to the UK and she put on her exhibition, said, "Freddie, I know you've got some sketches from Afghanistan. Would you like to exhibit them alongside me?" And I thought, what a fantastic opportunity not to be missed. And yeah, so exhibited the paintings, everything sold, which was amazing. And I decided, well, actually, I think I might be able to make a career out of this. So started setting the conditions to leave the army and become a full-time artist.
That's so interesting, because you remind us all there that even in the most bloody and terrible of wars, the armies have always taken along artists and photographers to catalogue it, haven't they? Always.
Yeah, it's sadly the Imperial War Museum no longer do it, but there was a good, I guess, progeny of war artists right the way through the First World War, all the way through to Falklands and the early Gulf Wars. And I think the reason art is such a good medium is because it can capture things that photography can't. You can capture some quite horrific atrocities and mark it and comment on it, which photography would not be able to do. And a great example of that is Peter Hausen, who was the official war artist who went out to Bosnia. And he, through his mediums, he captured some really significant things which photography just wouldn't be able, it was too horrific for photography. So I always thought, although I'm capturing the slightly nicer side of war, I always thought it was nice to document my time through art, and it's an important reference, and I hope it kind of stays that way for the rest of time, I guess.
Let's have a look at some of the pictures from your Wild series, because this shows a completely different side of you, I guess, where you've, is it something you've been doing all the way along, doing wildlife, or is this something you relaxed back and did when you got back from the army?
It's something I set off on when I kind of started my professional career. And I think I always loved painting animals, and an easy way to start making money initially was to paint portraits of people's dogs. So I hounded hounded friends, family, anyone who would let me paint the dog and pay me for it. And so I kind of got this, I got really interested in animals, and I love animals, and I love my wildlife. And so they just seemed a natural subject for me. And it slowly developed into a collection, this wild collection, in tandem with my horses. But I very much see them both as the same thing. Horses, birds, they're all fantastic subjects.
Did you go anywhere special to paint those? Or did you do it all from photographs?
I have to say, the wild collection I did mainly from photographs. A lot of the UK works I went out and photographed myself. But because of lockdown, it really hammered the brakes on me getting out to some of these exotic places. So, for instance, the birds there, this kind of vista of birds swarming the boat was inspired by the Yamuna Ghat, which is Delhi. And a lovely man who I was following on Instagram was traveling there, who's a friend of a friend. You know how all these things turn out. We follow friends of friends on Instagram. And he allowed me to use some of his photos. And so it kind of developed into this collection.
Yeah, those are wonderful, those birds on water, and perfect for you as well, with your reflections. But you also do 3D work, you do sculpture.
Yeah.
We saw you earlier, didn't we? We saw you in Whitehall actually doing a sculpture of the guardsman in front of the guardsman. So you do 3D as well as 2D.
3D, the sculpture came around by slight accident, really. During the Wild exhibition that I had online, there was one painting of swallows, which everyone wanted, sold out straight away, and I kept on getting demands for to buy it. And so I said to people, look, I'll do you the same idea, but I'll do it from a different angle. And to do this, I had to sculpt 2 swallows, and then I could paint them at various different angles to get the light and the right setting. And I loved the sculpture so much that I then took it to a foundry and said, can you make this into bronze?
Oh, well, I'll hold you up there because you've made a video about this.
Yes.
There's the sculpture, that's the finished sculpture. But you have made this wonderful video, which for total amateurs like me, I find so fascinating, because how does the whole process start? What do you have to go through and how do you finish it off? Well, this is how you showed your audience. Let's start first of all with our first clip, which is basically how you get started at all making a sculpture. Let's have a look.
So through my reliable Googling and trawling through Instagram accounts of great sculptors, I realised that you need a reference drawing or photo, and also a rough plan of how you're going to make your armature, which is the skeletal base from what you start. And there you go, you can see I've roughly sketched out something that looks like a swallow. So after lots of twisting, bending, clipping, stabbing my thumb with little bits of wire, and generally just really hurting my hands trying to manipulate this strong aluminium wire into position, I eventually got there, and I think I did an okay job. Okay, that took way longer than I was expecting. But I think the armature is there.
So, Freddie, you've made the armature, which is quite difficult in itself, but looks rather beautiful. But the next stage is covering it with clay. As we look at how you filmed it, the process, what are you doing? Tell us what you're doing.
So I'm roughing it out initially and using very large kind of lumps of clay to create the initial form of the birds, and then slowly refining it, but staying true to my style. And here you'll see the finished product of a very kind of broad marks and brush strokes and scrapes and scratches, because again, I don't want too much detail. I want to suggest a detail. And that's kind of how it came about. And so the final thing is there, exactly there. Clay, all good to go, ready for the foundry.
Well, that's right. I mean, it looks beautiful as it is, but it's got to go through the sort of the industrial process.
Yeah.
finishing it off. And here we'll have a look at the last clip of the video, which shows what you actually have, the process it has to go through, which is really quite something, but ends up with something extraordinarily beautiful. Have a look at this.
So with the swallows in hand, or rather in the car seat next to me, I headed over to the fantastic Talos Art Foundry, where a silicone mold would be made of these swallows, like this. This is an example, not swallows. And then you would have molten wax poured into the silicone mold from a big machine like this. And this is the end result. It's an exact replica of my clay swallows, but just made in a hard green wax. And we've included a base here with, of course, the very important signature and edition number. Next is the dipping or investment stage. So here we are watching a different sculpture by a fantastic sculptor called Matt Duke. And this beautiful salmon is getting dipped in a ceramic suspended slurry, it's called, which then dries and hardens around the wax. This is done repeatedly a number of times and finally gets a crusty layer of sand, so it ends up looking a bit like this. This waxy, sandy contraption is then placed upside down in a kiln and heated to 1100 degrees. All the wax melts out the bottom, leaving an exact, perfect ceramic negative mold. This negative mold then gets packed into sand the right way up this time, whilst bronze ingots are heated to 600 degrees and melted down into this glowing crucible. The bronze is then carefully poured into the negative molds and left to cool for around about an hour. Once bronze has cooled enough, it is then brought to this room where the ceramic shells are sandblasted away and the actual casting is cleaned up just to reveal the bronze itself. And this is where I finally got to rejoin the swallows, and they look amazing. Here we have Ben just doing the final bit of cleaning, but super, super excited with how they turned out. Now the final part of the journey is patination, and here we have Bert using a number of different chemicals with a lot of heat to create the fantastic colours and finish that you see on the swallows.
Well, I mean, Freddie, it's fascinating to see the whole process because most of us would never imagine that it's quite that complicated. And I know you've got lots of sculptures with you. Have you got any still of the swallows?
No, sadly, none of the swallows, but I do have a Windsor Grey, which is from the Royal Mews, one of the really very large white or grey horses which pull the state coach. And what's lovely is actually the person who's bought this version, so they're all done in editions of 12, is this guy here, who's the jockey. He was the lead jockey for the 8-horse train pulling the gold carriage. And so I'm rather lucky that it meets his approval. And we were talking about portraits earlier, and he says he can see himself there. So hopefully.
Well, that has to be a mark of approval when the actual guy you've modelled actually wants to buy one of the sculptures off you. I love your studio, and I know that's your home as well. So is it just, is it a place in the garden, or are you in the loft, or what? Because an artist needs space, don't you? You need light, and you need space for all the raw materials and canvases and everything.
Exactly right. So I've actually commandeered one of the bedrooms from the home, which is in the loft, and it's quite nice. It's lovely space, and I work. I've never found a studio with perfect lighting, so I work off these rather large daylights, these artificial daylights, which are set up in a specific kind of direction that captures the light on the canvas perfectly. And that's my setup, and that's where I work while away for all my days.
Yeah, but you do go out, like you say, to get your wildlife pictures that then presumably come back and you work on around. You do venture out into nature, even on a paddleboard, is it?
Yes.
We've got video of you on a paddleboard going out trying to capture some swans. I think you are. You don't get that close to them, it has to be said. And I think that looks a bit dodgy, just standing on a paddleboard. How you get your camera out and get the right pictures, now? I don't know. Looks dodgy to me.
Yeah, it was a bit precarious. I think I was ambitious in my research that day, but I try to experience as much as possible what I'm capturing. You lose so much from a photograph, and hence I think during all the parades for the Jubilee year, I wanted to be present and take the photos myself, or rather, be present and direct my photographer. You gain so much information which can then get reproduced into the painting. Yeah. So yeah, I spend a lot of time researching my subjects beforehand and then creating them or recreating them in the studio.
Because the impression that you are trying to do as an artist, as you said, as opposed to a photographer, you're not just recording the visual element, you're actually trying to record the emotion as well, the feeling, aren't you?
You're exactly right. The feeling is so important.
Yeah.
I want someone to be able to look at a painting and for it to almost change every time they look at it. You have a painting on the wall and you see something different every time, which is very important. Whereas I feel there's some beautiful photographs out there, but it's a very different genre I'm trying to, or very different emotion I'm trying to fulfill. With a painting, I want someone to interact with it and see it change and see different things and grow with it. Whereas a painting, I think, is a snapshot of time. It's something which is still.
How was lockdown for you? And actually, I know a lot of people were frustrated being locked in, but in a way, you made it your own because you started to do a lot on social media, didn't you? You really started to interact with the people who like your paintings, and you showed them a lot about the process of painting.
I think lockdown's been really interesting in the fact that people have become a lot more invested in where things come from, whether it's your coffee or your bread down the road, or indeed artwork. We love knowing how it's made. We love knowing who makes it. And that's been a huge advantage to us artists. I think that galleries are still very important, but certainly in the primary market, people love getting to know the artist, finding the inspiration behind it, having that one-to-one interaction. And having a piece of that process, ultimately the artwork.
Okay, well, here's a little piece of that process that I absolutely find fascinating, and I know our viewers will. And you can talk us through it, because this is one of your time-lapse videos showing how a painting starts from, well, there you are, just a big board.
Exactly. So this is a commission of a fantastic lady and her horse, Megan and Wanna-Do, and they are a dressage pair. And so it starts off first with drawing. I've done all the planning beforehand, so I'm just going straight into it. And first off, you get the kind of tones right, and hence that brown is me getting the light and the tone right and where the shadow should be. But then you go into it with color, and that's my speciality, is really pushing the colors and seeing how extreme I can make the colors without essentially wrecking the painting. And then the final piece is, once it's dry, is varnishing. And you varnish the painting to protect it, but also to bring out all the rich colors from the pigments. And that's a very speedy snapshot of how the paintings are created.
Well, yeah, I mean, that was about 25 seconds. How long did that painting take?
So that painting took a day to paint. But the planning beforehand took probably a month, if not longer.
Well, planning? What goes into planning then? Is this ideas for exactly what you want, sketching, getting I don't know, the form right, and then thinking of colours? Is it all of that sort of thing?
Yes, it's being commissioned, you work with the client as well. So it was selecting the right scene to capture. This was one from a photo, so selecting a photo. But then it was getting the colours, and it takes so long to do those initial sketches, create good colour combinations which will work with the painting. But also, it's funny, and this is a very artist thing to say, but you need time to sit with it and just live with it for a bit to pick up whether things are right. And a lot of my paintings I will leave on the easel, go away and come back, and it's amazing what you will see and pick up on, kind of dropping it from your mind for 24 hours and then coming back into it.
And do you do one painting at a time and you don't start another until you finish that one? Or do you have several on the go all at once?
Yes, I'm a simple being, and I can only deal with one painting at a time. I'm so impressed by these artists who have 5 canvases on the easel at one time. I don't know how you manage to focus on that.
Who washes all your brushes? Oh, for heaven's sake. Is that I mean, I don't know this. Is that a discipline that as an artist you learn from the very beginning, is to how to look after your brushes? You never leave a mess. No matter how tired you are at the end of the day, you don't leave a mess for tomorrow, do you?
From speaking with my artist friends, this is a discipline which is rarely followed in artist circles. But I think, again, the military never leaves you, and so I almost can't leave the studio without washing down brushes and prepping for the next day.
Do you still make your bed?
Of course.
I speak as an army mother. I know these things.
Oh, there you go.
Let's look at some of the paintings from your Silhouette series, because again, these show yet another sort of aspect of your work. I mean, that is just wondrous. That beautiful, colourful sky. So many others. Look, again, you've got some of the a bit like the one we saw earlier, just a bit like it. Silhouettes. You are fascinated by birds as well, aren't you? And then, of course, your horses. I just showed that to my sister, who's very fond of horses, and she just, wow. And I mean, animals on water, of course. Water just gives you your reflections, which you love so much anyway. And your horses and your water and your reflections. Beautiful, beautiful paintings. Do you hang these at home? Do any of your own paintings hang in your own living room?
They do, but they're all for sale, Anne. So they don't survive long on the living room wall. My poor wife is very long suffering with the various change rounds that happen.
Oh, she gets fond of one and then you sell it.
Yeah, but that's good because we need turnover.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. It's called making a living, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. What about projects that you're working on at the moment? What are you doing?
Yeah, I've just come back from a big research trip in Australia, which has been fantastic. And I'm developing a collection of, I think it's still in its early stages, but I think of flora and fauna from Australia, again in the same style, that Silhouette style. And I'm going to tie it together with a visit to Kenya in about a month's time, where I'm doing the same thing. And come up with a collection of works to be exhibited in May next year. So there's a bit of pressure there.
Sounds brilliant though. As an artist, getting to us, I don't know if it was your first time in Australia, but what impressed you about Australia? I mean, when I first went to Australia, I couldn't get over how much sky there was. I mean, clearly there's the same amount of sky in Britain, but you don't see as much of it. I was just knocked out by the colours and the openness of the sky.
It is incredible. And I think the one thing that really resonated with me and is related to the sky is the light. It's such a clear light out there. And there's a lovely, brilliant artist called Arthur Streeton, who's a Brit, actually, turn of a century Brit. And he captured that light fantastically. And I've always admired his works. So it was brilliant to suddenly go there and see exactly what he was talking about with his paintings and the clear light. So yeah, I was perplexed and almost obsessed with the light and how it bounces off things, and it's so different from the UK.
So back there behind you in that studio, you've got sketches of things you're probably going to be doing for your Australia series or your Kenya series.
Yes, so you can kind of see over here is some of my initial sketches, and I travel with paper and acrylic paint, which dries very, very quickly. And this means I can go out, take my photos. If I've got an idea, I will then, wherever we are staying, I will come back and quickly sketch some, rough out some ideas, and that's the start of the planning process. And so it'll grow throughout the trip, and then we get back to the UK and I'll continue to develop it and hopefully into a series of fantastic paintings.
I look forward to those. And what's the big painting? I can see big red canvas behind you.
Yes, yeah. This here is a large commission which stemmed from my Jubilee works from Lasting Reflections. And it's another take of the Household Cavalry, but this time focusing on the band. for some really lovely clients of mine who missed out, unfortunately, on a painting which sold during the exhibition. So they've decided to go and commission their own.
Can you go and get it and show it?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's big. It's very big. Oh wow, it's very big. It's lovely.
You can see this is a good example. This is a good example, actually, of how these paintings start. So the canvas is blank initially, and then I first of all create these really abstract marks. So you've got red here, purple, and you've also got gold flecks, which are just, you probably won't be able to see in the camera, but they're here.
Yes, we can.
And so the painting starts like that, and then I will draw on top of this, draw up the scene, and then apply oil paint on top. And what that does is that means in the darks I don't paint any of the darks and let the background come through. And so here you get this fabulous almost 3D effects between the opaque oil paint and this kind of translucent luminous background, which creates kind of a lot of movement and comes back to what we were talking about earlier with not getting too into the detail, but suggesting and giving an impression of the scene.
Wow, it's absolutely gorgeous, and the size of it has impact, well, doesn't it?
It's rather big. So the biggest painting from the collection was about 2 meters wide. So it's one of the smaller ones from the collection.
Oh, crumbs. But that gives it such impact, I think, that the size of it, doesn't it? It looks wonderful. So you're still painting that, and you've got lots of others on the go. I mean, it's been the most amazing time for you. It must have been doing the Jubilee and being artist in residence. Sadly, that came to an end, I presume, with the Queen's death.
It was really sad, and I think despite the planning of it, and we all knew it was going to happen at some point, it was such a shock when it actually did happen. So I really hummed and ahed a lot. She had chosen me to capture her Jubilee year, and I was very, very reticent to do any more work on it, especially with regards to her funeral, because it was uncharted territory. I hadn't been selected to capture her funeral. But it was actually friends and family and clients who all said, look, you've got to capture this. It's very important. And she would have wanted it to happen. So I went ahead and captured these 2 funeral scenes, one of her being pulled on her gun carriage to Westminster, and the other of her lying in state in Westminster. Which
I think is beautiful, because the light in that is just so sad. And looks a bit lonely. I don't know, it captures all of the moments, all of the feelings that we felt at the time.
I think it was a really special time in regards that it brought everyone together, and as a nation we really did mourn. As a world we mourned together, and that Westminster scene of her lying in state was so iconic of that time. And actually the person who now owns that painting is queued for 10 hours in the queue, and so I feel it's gone to a very worthy home. And
I'm so glad that it's been bought by somebody who really felt they needed it.
Yeah,
it's because and in a way it does put a very poignant full stop to your year in residence, doesn't it?
It has indeed. It really did, put an end point to it, but also, I guess, give it this closure, which was unforeseen. But it gave it the closure and turned it into this huge honour to have been her last artist in residence, and to have had the opportunity to capture such a memorable year.
Will you be watching the coronation with a view to producing anything from that, or do you think that's royals? You've had enough royals for the moment.
I've tried my hardest to focus on my current project, which is Australia and Kenya. But I mean, rather, I'm incredibly grateful. There's been a number of commissions that have come around from people who have wanted coronation works. Including, I think I'll be doing some commissions for some of the regiments involved in the coronation, because it's a huge thing for them, and one of quite significant. So I'll look forward to be doing those.
Yeah, right, it's significant. It's the first time we've had a coronation for 70 years, isn't it?
Yeah.
It'll be quite something. Thank you so much for joining us this week, because I just think I think you'd make a fantastic job of anything that you were doing for the coronation. But I think your Jubilee year in residence has been incredible, but also your other work, and I'm looking forward to seeing your Australia stuff. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Anne. Great to speak with you.
Absolutely brilliant. Thank you. Well, there you go. That's it from me for another week. Many thanks for joining us here. And there's more every day right here on Viking TV, all about the coronation. Shall we leave you perhaps with Freddy and his lovely video about his amazing time as artist in residence to the late Queen, as we all look forward to the King's coronation. I think he'd be great featuring that too. But anyway, from me, goodbye.
Hello, I'm Freddy Paske and I'm the artist in residence during the Queen's Platinum Jubilee. In short, it means I'm the official artist for all the horsey pomp and ceremony that's happening throughout the Jubilee year. To do this, I'll be the resident artist for the Household Cavalry Mounted Regiment, the Royal Mews, and the King's Troop Royal Horse Artillery, where I'll create a collection of paintings and sculpture to be exhibited later this year. It's an amazing opportunity to work with and gain unprecedented access to some of the country's most historic equine institutions. The fact it happens over the Queen's Platinum Jubilee, something we might not see again, makes it even more special. In 2021, the Household Cavalry Mounted Regiment approached me to be their official artist for the Platinum Jubilee. This got me thinking about all the other horses that were going to be involved throughout the year. And so I approached the Royal Mews, who look after the Queen's carriages. Before I knew it, the Crown Equerry was showing the Queen my work, and she approved the role. After this, the King's Troop Royal Horse Artillery gave me the honour of being their artist in residence. And so I finally completed the triptych. All horses on parade will be captured. It'll involve me doing a lot of visits and following parades over the next year, where I will sketch, take photos, take a lot of film, and bring them all back to the studio, where I'll start working on paintings. I like to give an impression of my subject rather than display it in intricate detail. I think if it's too detailed, the eye gets focused in on certain areas. I also like to trick the eye into thinking there is more there than there actually is. To do this, I'll leave the canvas blank in certain areas and paint around it. So quite often I'll suggest a bit or a bit of tag by not actually painting it. And I think this creates a great interaction between the painting and viewer. I want to do the same thing with my sculpture too, and deliberately keep things quite loose and suggest detail, really focusing on movement and composition. The key dates for me will be the Windsor Horse Show in May, where there'll be over 500 horses performing, including the Royal Cavalry from Oman and Le Garde Républicain from Paris, who excitingly have both invited me to visit them to see their preparations. Then we've got the Queen's Birthday Parade, closely followed by the Platinum Jubilee Procession, which will be an amazing spectacle to see. Also, I'll be visiting a lot of these regiments in their barracks and their stables. Lots to look forward to. You spend a lot of time working by yourself as an artist, so I absolutely love meeting people and talking about my work. There's a bit of pressure. There's some very important people relying on me doing a good job, but it's an incredible honour to capture such a historical occasion.